In this video, I'm going to talk about how to set up formulas in Google Sheets, and I'm using the Simple Harmonic Motion labs as our example. So in this set of labs, you have a set of 3 labs. You have one dealing with Hooke's law, one dealing with the period of a spring, and one dealing with the period of the pendulum. And in each one of these, you're going to have to make a graph of some of your data, and then use the slope of your graph to calculate some value about either the spring or the pendulum. In the case of both the spring labs, the spring constant k. In the case of the pendulum lab, we're calculating the acceleration of gravity g. So I've already done this Hooke's law lab. I've done all my calculations. I found the spring constant. And so I'm moving on to the second part of this, the period part. And so I want to now know, how do I enter the formulas in to do the calculations that I want to do? So first thing I'm going to do is decide what variables I'm going to put on my horizontal and vertical axis. And the way I do this is to go back and look at the formula that relates mass and period for a spring. And so that formula is listed on our equation sheets. It's all the way down here. It says period of the spring is equal to 2 pi times the square root of mass over k, where k is the spring constant. Now, if I wanted to get a straight line whose slope could be used to find the spring constant in the spring, there's a number of different ways I could go about doing this. Probably the easiest way from this formula, if I have period over here, is to put whatever's over by itself on the vertical axis and keep this stuff on the horizontal axis. Now, since I have the square root, what I would probably do is square everything to get rid of the square root, and then I have something that looks like period squared is equal to 4 pi squared times m over k. So if I graphed period squared on the vertical axis and m on the horizontal axis, I should get a straight line whose slope is 4 pi squared over k. And so that's what I'm going to end up doing. So I said on my vertical axis, I'm going to do mass, and then the vertical axis, what did I say? Period squared. And so that'd be in seconds squared in my units. So there we go. I've now entered those two in. Now, there are other ways you could choose to do this. You could do period versus the square root of mass. You could do period squared on the horizontal axis and mass on the vertical axis. You could even do period on the horizontal axis and mass on the vertical axis. So you could do it any one of those 4 ways, but how you do it is then going to determine what your actual calculations look like. So in my table here, I'm going to put, well, mass, kg, period squared, and seconds squared, and then I'm going to get this to do the calculations for me. Now, if I just want mass to copy over, I'm going to equal sign and select this cell. What that's going to tell Google Sheets to do is take whatever value is in this cell and put it in this other cell. So take whatever's in B11 and plug it into B27. Now the next one, I want to calculate period squared. So I have a period of 10 cycles. So the first thing I would need to do is take the period of 10 cycles and divide it by 10. So there we go, I've done that. I put it in parentheses so I make sure it does that division first, and then I'm going to square whatever that number is. So in order to do division, I use the slash line. In order to do square, I use the caret. And then I hit enter, and there we go, we're done. Now, I want to copy the same calculation for everything in this table. So I can take and copy it all down like this. And there we go, I have mass and period squared. Now, the next step is to make a graph and find my best fit line. We've done this a couple of times already. So I can select my data, choose chart. It says, oh, look, it looks like you want a scatter chart, which I do. I'm going to go to customize, series, add my trend line, and then use the equation. And so I get that my slope is 6.67. So I'm going to type it in here for the slope of my line. Now, the next thing that I want to do is to find what is the spring constant from this value. We said from my equation that if I graph period squared versus mass, the slope I get is 4 pi squared over k. Well, if I want to solve for k, I'd multiply k to the other side and then divide by slope. So 4 pi squared over my slope should give me my value for k. So the way I can enter that in is I could say equals 4 times, and use the star for times. And then I'm going to use a function in Google Sheets. Functions can be a particular mathematical calculation, but they can also signify specific constants. And pi is a constant that Google Sheets knows. And the way to signify that I want to do pi is to just click pi, the number, and then put empty parentheses behind it. What this tells Google Sheets is that I'm going to take 4 and multiply it by pi. I do want to square pi, so I'll put that like that. And the last thing I'm going to do is divide by my slope. And there we go. I've got my new spring constant. I'm going to put it in here. So I'm going to say equals that. Then I want to know my spring constant from Hooke's law. So I can actually go back to a previous sheet. If I say equals, and then find what is my spring constant. There. And then I want to do percent difference. And the way to do percent difference is 1 minus the other divided by one of them, and I get my percent difference. I can change it into a percentage here by clicking the percent button, but this is about 3.9%. So I would say that my two spring constants match pretty much perfectly in this case. So it's hard to set up these formulas. One of the things to point out about formulas in general is anytime you put an equal sign in either Excel or Google Sheets, it's telling the spreadsheet that you're putting in some sort of formula or function after this, and that it's going to do a mathematical operation or do a function and then spit out the result and put it in that cell. So in this case, it's finding whatever C40 is. C40 is taking 4 times pi squared and divided by C36. So those are the functions that I would enter in there. The advantage to doing this in terms of functions is, let's say I realize that, hey, something's not right in my data here. Maybe this should be, maybe this should have been 0.07 instead. That might change my slope a little bit. Maybe my slope actually should have been 6.57. Well, when I do that and alter that, that automatically recalculates everything for me, and I don't have to go back and recalculate it over and over again. So this is a quick overview of using the formulas and functions in Google Sheets with the Simple Harmonic Motion Labs as my guide.